All right. So thank you everyone for joining. Good afternoon if you're in the UK, just about. Good morning to you, G. I know it's 2 minutes past 6
Yes, good morning.
in Costa Rica. And this is our second official Altbe show. So let us know where you're coming in from. If you're in the UK, where in the UK are you right now? If you're anywhere else international, let us know where you're coming from. I am in the gloomy Salford this
Sunny
afternoon.
Salford.
Sunny Salford, yeah. Sunny Salford. And we're going to jump straight in. So today's discussion, so G stays awake, is going to be around the importance of slowing down to speed up, right? So the importance of slowing down to speed up, which is completely counterintuitive, especially in the Western side of the world, to actually build what we want to build. We're told we should like go, work, drive all the time. And one of the things that's most commonly overlooked is the importance of slowing down or stopping, and actually what to do and how to slow down and stop as well, which we're going to dive into. And so we stay on track because we can get a little bit all over the place, right? We're going to narrow it down to 3 key areas. The first one is, why is slowing down still demonized unless you're physically or mentally unwell? And what can we start doing to change that? Right. So there's the problem. What's the solution? What can it be? The second thing is the power of perspective and stepping away from the hamster wheel. And we'll wrap up, I guess, with some takeaways for you. Maybe you're watching this right now, live or a replay. You're a HR manager, HR director, or maybe you're part of a team. So we're going to give you some self-coaching questions so you can get clarity and then move with intention. So you're not just doing stuff for the sake of doing it. It's better to understand yourself. Well, I believe it's better to understand yourself, understand how you work, why you're working, and then create a plan based off that. Not all this like exterior stuff that we build on top of us that isn't really us, and then kind of make a plan based on what we're not. Doesn't really make sense. So I'm here today with Georgia Smith. Here we go. She is the founder of Sanctity, and I actually really like your headline, G, so I'm going to read it. Georgia is a powerhouse facilitator at the intersection of inner wellness and business success. I like that. So good morning, G. I feel like it's a new show. Good morning. How are you doing over there?
Great, thank you. Yeah, I love that first one about the demonizing slowing down, because I feel like so many people are like, oh, I don't know how to stop. I don't know how to slow down. But you don't know how because you've not tried, because it's demonized so much. That's what I've noticed. Yeah, why do you think it's demonized?
It's a good question. I think over the past few years, if you look at the workspace in general, what's come up is it's like, oh, mental health is on the rise and burnout's on the rise. And I don't believe there's a true understanding of why this stuff's happening. So people just jump to, oh, yeah, just have a bit of time off. Yeah, to take time off, have some time off. But there's no like understanding or like peeling back the layers of why people are burnt out, why mental health is on the rise, why people actually need to take a break and stop, right? So because of that, I think people have jumped to a conclusion of, oh, yeah, just take time off. And that lack of understanding, and there's no like reason to do it. So it's still, I think, in the eyes of business in general or the workplace in general, kind of swept under the carpet, like, oh, I'll have time off, but not actually respected because people don't understand why it's important. And I know you've experienced burnout yourself in the past, right? I know you're living in all over the world right now and putting your well-being at the forefront of everything you do. But in the past, do you want to give a bit of context around what you were doing and the burnout that you experienced?
Yeah, so I was in a really fast-paced corporate role. I actually worked within recruitment for a number of years. And I remember when I first sort of was interviewing and got the role, they were like, this is a super competitive environment. If you're competitive, you'll do really well. And I was like, great. I was like, this is awesome, because I'm a very competitive person and I have this massive drive to succeed, very ambitious person. So okay, this is the perfect thing for me. And it was enjoyable for a while. And this is the thing about burnout, is it's almost like a roller coaster. Like, you're enjoying it at parts. Like, you love the burnout. Like, there's a reason why we're all burning out. It's because we're going on this roller coaster of like, and my mum used to say it, she was like, Georgia, you're burning the candle at both ends. And I would be like, yeah, whatever. I love my life that way. I like waking up early and I like going to bed late because I get the full day. But obviously it doesn't last. And that's the thing. It's like, do you want to stay on that roller coaster your whole life? Like, it can be a nice ride sometimes, but you're going to get exhausted if you're being like pulled around for again and again, and you actually don't know how to get off. And I think that's the thing. That's something that people ask me a lot, is like, okay, how did you go from working in recruitment and being this kind of career London person to what you're doing now, like living in Ibiza, running retreats, totally in wellness, also ambitious. And it's not really having the fear is really important, or having the fear but doing it anyway, because it took me quite a while to fully understand what was going on and fully understand, oh, I'm burnt out. And then it was a case of, okay, what's my strategy to get myself out of this? So I was very intentional about creating a personal strategy to get myself in a better position where I feel good, as well as earning money and all of that.
And how did you, first of all, so you got the awareness through burning out and actually being forced to kind of, I guess, slow down. What was that like? And then how did you make a strategy around that? And then in the workplace, if you don't mind me asking, was that like frowned upon when you started taking care of yourself and putting yourself first before a business, a company? And then what were your results afterwards?
Yeah. Wow. So many questions. Okay. I'll start with what it was like in the workplace. And this is the thing, I think it's really important not to blame employers and not to blame employees. Like, this is not about the blame game. So I don't want to sit here and blame my company or blame any companies about what that was like, because we don't know better. Like, there's no one there apart from ours, obviously, saying this is how you do it. Like, this is what you do. So it was for a lack of understanding, in my opinion, as to why it ended up that way. But yeah, it was very frowned upon to leave the office before 5 p.m. Yeah. It was really frowned upon. But it was interesting because I'd worked my way up to a point where I was making quite a lot of money, and I was making more money than I did when I was staying till 8, 9, 10 p.m. in the office when I left at 5, because I'd want to go to my dance class, or I'd want to go out, or just chill, or go to yoga. But it was still really, really frowned upon. And I even was a number of times, pulled into the office and said, look, like, what is going on with you? And I'm like, look, I just want to go at 5. And it was a big thing. Yeah, seriously. And it's a big thing. Like, I was like, I just want to leave at 5. Like, I want to have a life. And it wasn't really understood or accepted. And I think that's the thing. It's because all they knew was how to work and go home at a late time. That's all people knew how to do. People don't really know what to do with themselves at 5 o'clock if they're used to going to home at 10 all the time. So they're thinking, what the hell are you doing? So yeah, it was definitely frowned upon. And then, but then also supported at the same time. So I actually got to a point where I got chronic headaches. So I remember I actually had a headache every single day for a year. And I went to the doctors and I was like, look, I've got these headaches, like, make them go away. And then the doctor was like, okay, what do you do? I was like, oh, I work in recruitment. He was like, is it stressful? I was like, yeah, sometimes. It's like, okay, well, that's why you have these headaches. You're so stressed. It's like, I'm not stressed. I'm a happy person. He's like, no, the stress is underneath. And that's the thing about burnout and stress. Like, you can go out with a smile on your face and be productive and do all these things, but it's underneath the surface, like it's bubbling up under you, and it
Mm,
comes out in the form of illness or burning out or headaches in my case. You've
yeah,
spoken about this before, about the whole like dis-ease of energy and motion. I never ever forgot that.
yeah,
But that's what happened.
yeah. And I think for everyone watching right now, have you, wherever you are in the world, have you experienced any form of burnout? If you're willing to share, you could just say yes or no. And are you aware of the reasons why? And did you make any changes? Let us know in the comments.
I think it's
And
important as well to say, like, what is burnout?
yeah,
Because we throw this word around, like it's a cool fancy word, we throw it around, but like, what is it? And if you are working or living your life in whatever way and you feel like you're tired and you're a bit exhausted, but you don't feel fulfilled, you don't feel genuinely grateful and fulfilled in a lasting moment. So you can have fleeting moments of happiness and joy, but you don't feel lasting fulfillment. That is a massive sign of burnout. If you feel like
yeah,
there's something missing, but you're tired and you don't know why.
yeah. And I agree. The phrase is thrown around, burnout, 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 and then yeah, it's like just chucking around everywhere. But I think when it boils down, it's you can still get all your work done, but what areas of your life are you neglecting that much that it's almost like the manifestation of the things you're neglecting is coming out through, it's like physically telling you symptoms through your body,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And I think when your body's speaking to you in that way, first of all, it whispers, then it starts speaking to you. Then you actually you're aware of what's going on. But I think when you make yourself so busy at all times, and busy is not productive, right? Productivity is very different to being busy. But when you make yourself be busy all the time, you're ignoring any external or internal like signals to tell you like what's going on with you with yourself. So you lose that communication with yourself. And I think that's what burnout is. And I remember when let's have a look. Wayne says, is it burnout or is it not caring about considering your emotional state? I can see the cogs ticking
So
there.
interesting. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good point, because if you're not caring about your emotional state, then you're numbing yourself. And when you numb yourself, you are prone to burnout massively.
Yeah.
And that's normal, by the way. Like, it's very normal to not want to be aware of your emotions or stop. So many people come to me and they're like, but I don't know what to do with myself if I slow down. And it's like they're scared of slowing down because, like Wayne said, you have to sit with your emotions, right? Uh, but that's a form of numbing yourself, and that's fine. It's a natural reaction, but be aware of that because you can change it.
Good answer. And Emma's got a comment here. She said restructure. So she had a burnout when there was a restructure due to redundancy made more workload for me. I couldn't keep up. I want to achieve all tasks set. I cried daily. I guess there's not much context there, but that just seems like an
Yeah.
overbearing amount of work.
Yeah, no, I really feel that as well, because I think in so many organizations, the work is never ending. The work is never ending. Like, it is like your to-do list could be as long as the equator of the earth. Like, it is never going to stop, because the company is going out to be like, okay, we want to grow, we want to do this, but they're not considering how many people they have. And I always say this about organizations. It's like, okay, you want to grow, that's amazing. What's your budget? And what's your employee count? Like, how many people are going to be doing this? How is the work going to be spread out? If you're starting a project without budget and without enough employees, like, you should not be doing that project. Like, grow organically first and then get your budget, get your employee count, and do it then.
Yeah. I remember when I guess I don't know what to label it, or if it even deserves a label. But when I started my first business, I remember after like 2.5 years, I started getting heart palpitations quite frequently. I remember getting like, I was eating healthy, working out every day, but also working every day. And I'd take time off, right? But mentally, I was still completely switched on. I was responsive to everything that was happening. And I remember like almost freaking out because I had this palpitation. I remember I was running up a hill in Budapest. And I was like, whoa. Like, I don't know if you've had one before. If you're watching, you've had one before. It's like, if you hurt your arm, that's fine. But if something happens to your heart, you're like, shit, I've got one of these things, you know? So then it started happening like once a month, once a week. And as time went on, then I was starting to get them daily. And every time I just like surrendered, like, right, I'm going to die. Just like, yeah. And I really didn't enjoy it. But I kept working. I was like, maybe I need to be healthier. Right. So I was like, I'll keep working out. Oh, now I'll work out twice. I'll do yoga and I'll go and do Muay Thai or something like that. And I remember one day I was driving from a Muay Thai class back over a bridge. I was living in Vietnam. I was like trying to get back for some calls, and I had this palpitation whilst I was on my bike, and I was almost passing out. And I was like, I need to drive to the hospital. So I was like on my way there, and I really wanted to slow down and stop. But I knew if I stopped, then I don't know if someone would stop on the side of the road and help me. So got to the hospital, had the ECG, got all these tests, got all this stuff. And they were trying to put me on. They were very like, let's say Western focused. They were like, oh, maybe you need beta blockers. Maybe you need that, like trying to put me on like medication. I was like, it's not this. I don't know what it is, but it's not this. So I said, if I have one more palpitation, I'm flying to Bangkok, because there's some really nice hospitals there. They're like 5-star hotels. I'm gonna just check into one of these and see what happens. Anyway, had one again. So I flew to Bangkok. I met with a Dutch doctor there, more of a holistic doctor. And at the time I wasn't drinking alcohol, wasn't drinking coffee, because I was narrowing everything down. And yeah, then we did some tests. He put the ECG on, did all this tests. And he said, Ryan, I want you to go away, go and work out as hard as you can, go and have a mad night out, go and drink loads of coffee. And he's like, then come back. So I was like, well, it's the doctor's orders. So, okay. So I went and I did all that stuff, came back, and he looked at the results, and he said, when was the last time you had a day off? Like, the start of 2016. He's like, it's 2019. I was like, yeah, but same as you. I was like, but I live a great life. I love work. I was like, yeah, but I'm healthy and this. And he's like, your body literally has no other way to communicate with you except through your heart. So like throw it out of your chest to say like, slow down, like actually slow down. And then I took myself away for a few days to like completely chill. And after that was so productive. So I actually switched off, turned my phone off. I went away, and that was it was so counterintuitive to me at the time, because I was like, I'm not doing stuff. But I forced myself to stop. And then after that, boom, everything just took off. So yeah, that's my, I guess, burnout tale. That
is a massive burnout tale. 100% burnout. In case you're wondering, definitely. Yeah, that is insane. And it's so interesting, isn't it, how we can be so confused about why the body is feeling not right. And I used to have it actually where I would be what would even happen? I think I would have like a day or two where I just wouldn't be able to move. I'd just be genuinely like, oh, this is just a day where I have to, like, my body would force me to stop in that way, where I just actually wouldn't, I'd have to just have a bed day. And I thought that was normal.
A bed day.
Yeah. I would be like, I admit defeat for today and today only. And tomorrow I'll start again. Yeah, it can be quite confusing as to why. And I guess people like to be in denial. Like we wanted to be in denial in those stages as well. Like we were like, I have a good life, I'm healthy, work out, whatever. But my body's still telling me that I need to slow down and stop. And it's because it's that underlying stress. It's not necessarily in your face. I have a lot of people who come to me and they have it in the form of breakdowns. They're like, oh, I had a breakdown. And then I carried on again afterwards. And then I had another breakdown. And I'm scared that I'm going to have another breakdown, because what happens, that's an extreme version of your body telling you something isn't right.
And this just, when you said the word breakdown, then for some reason I thought of like cars, RAC, AA. And if you think about it, like a few hundred years ago, we were way more in tune with ourselves, our bodies. And if we were in transit somewhere and something was happening with our bodies or our vehicle, we'd know about it. We'd sense the feeling, maybe the horse and cart, like the horse was a bit hungry or there was a wobbly wheel on the cart or something. And if you broke down, there is no AA to ring. There's no RAC. But if you think about it these days, you don't think of, like, you're driving your car, it might flash something. You don't think about it. It's like worst case scenario. I've got insurance, they'll sort it out. I've got RAC, £3 a month, like they'll sort it out, right? As long as I'm not on the motorway or whatever. Because we don't have to think about it. We always know there's going to be a solution to this problem. But I think through the nature of how society's grown where we're at right now, we treat our bodies in the same way. It's like, oh, I can give it whatever I want. I can go to bed late. I can drink a ton of alcohol. I can get up early. I can fill my body full of shit again and just take on all this workload. Because if something happens, I've got it covered. I've got registered to a doctor. I've got insured. Like we're treating ourselves like some kind of machine instead of like a natural, organic, living thing, right? So we're very, very disconnected from ourselves in general. And Amanda says here, you end up working on autopilot due to your high autopilot, another car reference, due to your high stress management, and end up burning out without knowing.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, is it's super unproductive. So this is the thing, like you said, it felt counterintuitive to stop, right? You were like, oh no, I just want to work. And then there's this like burning desire. But wait, is it desire or is it like a need, a genuine need? Like, I need to work because I don't know what the fuck I would do if I didn't work. Sorry for the swearing. It's like this need that's like overpowering. And then you're just working for the sake of working, which is the opposite of productivity. And it's the same within organizations. Organizations are set up to be quite strict around hours of work and when work is done and how work is done. But human beings are not designed for that. We're all very, very different for a reason, because we think about it like we are all different. Every single person is different. We have different strengths, different weaknesses, because we're supposed to work together in a way that plays to someone's strengths and helps someone else's weaknesses. But organizations forget all about that. They'll do a quick strengths and weaknesses thing, then forget all about it once you've been onboarded. Like no one, this isn't a daily thing. This isn't is not built into the structure of an organization that genuinely thinks, you know what, Jenny at 10 a.m, best person ever. Jeremy at 10 a.m, you just might not even bother. Like, you got to get him at 6 p.m, he's a night owl. Like, and but this is the thing, it's not built for that. So we're being the opposite of productive in general.
And maybe, I guess to loop it back around to the question, why is taking time off or slowing down demonized? And maybe it's because and until people experience burnout or whatever catchphrase you want to use, maybe it's because we're treating our bodies and our minds like a machine instead of understanding it as in more of a natural organism that takes care. You need to, take care of it properly, like a car as well. And once we can understand our bodies like and our way of working a little bit more, and there's a like self-education or self-awareness around that, then it wouldn't be demonized so much, because there'd be an understanding behind it.
Yeah. I think it's the lack of understanding, but also the connection between success and hard work. And I hear it a lot of the time, and I get it. Like, if you work hard, it works. Got it. Understood. But we've gone too far with that. Like, in terms of, I remember when I first started my business, and I actually started off with a different business, and I would get up at like the crack of dawn. I would work on my business for maybe 2 or 3 hours. Then I would go to my actual job for the whole day, and then come back and then work again till about probably past midnight, because I thought I had to be the most hardworking person ever, and that's what would make me successful. And we have a lot of successful people out there who are telling the same narrative, because for some of them, a slither of the amount of people that work fucking hard all day, every day, a slither of that are in the right place at the right time. They get a good opportunity. They're strategic about it, and they make the most of it, and therefore they're very, very successful. Slither. And so they tell everyone else, work really hard, get up at 5 a.m, then you'll be a millionaire. People try it, they burn themselves out, and then they think they're not good enough to be that successful, so they quit whatever they're doing, or worse, they don't even bother starting because they feel like it's impossible. But the whole thing is unproductive. If you want to be innovative and different, you're not going to get it by working all hours. You're going to get it from perspective.
You're going to get it from perspective. I like that. There's a comment here which is something I think aligned with what you said before, G, and that was, how much of a responsibility do you think lies with the individual versus the organization when it comes to burnout? From Safi.
Yeah, I think it's the answer is definitely both. Organizations definitely need to take responsibility. I saw a post about a year ago now of a guy who took his life. He was a young man just starting his career. He took his life after a 14-minute interview at Deloitte.
Wow.
Like, this, employers need to take responsibility. That shit happens, and it happens more often than we know it does. So yes, if employers aren't taking responsibility, in my eyes, they have blood on their hands. But of course, individuals should take responsibility too. Like, don't just sit there and wait for an employee to give you a day off. Like, ask for it. Tell them how you feel. Be honest about it. Try. It's got to be a two-way thing. It's got to be communication between employees and employers that's open and that genuinely listens to each other to make it work.
So maybe another answer to why is this still demonized is, maybe if you create your own understanding or awareness around what you require to operate at a really good level within the workplace, and you honor that enough to then communicate that with, actually honoring yourself through that process and standing your ground, then maybe that is why, for it not to be demonized, because you can explain it and have that piece around education as well, around why you actually require to work like that and what the benefit is to the organization if you're working in a way that actually aligns with you, and you're resting in a way that's actually helping them get to their goals sooner. So maybe it's, as you said, it's the organization's responsibility on some level, but also a personal responsibility to maybe stand up for yourself and be able to communicate that effectively.
And other people too. Like, you will see it around. You will know when someone's not quite right. Stand up for them too. And for me, it was 50-50 when I started communicating it, because I did exactly that. I got some really good response. So my employer, they gave me 4 days a week instead of 5. And that was like, oh my God, it was the biggest win ever. And I was like, thank you so much. Like, it was awesome. But there were people within that organization who were like, what the fuck? Like, why is she working 4 days? She's still being paid.
What were your results though? Once you
I
started?
made loads of money. Like, it was not, it didn't even make the difference. Like,
Yeah.
that was the thing. But then people don't like that either, do they? Like, oh, you're only working 4 days and you're still making $1. Whereas actually it's like, okay, can we support each other a little bit more? Because I think it needs to be more normalized that we have different ways of working, and normalize that employers do things like that, you know.
It is. And before we move on to the next phase, Wayne says, I'm smiling at your story. You were a gym bunny a bunny. I've never been called a bunny before, who didn't think about caring for your mental health. Go around your gym and ask how many of your fellow gym bunnies, so there's a group of us, take as much care around their mental health. Be interested to see what the result is. Yeah, you know, there's that's very true, because if you go to a gym at any peak time, you'll see, you know, usually a bunch of guys who physically look great, but I also think that, which is great, and I think taking care of your body is one of the most important things you can do in your life. You only get one of them, but then also that can be used on the flip side as they're using their pain or some kind of issue, instead of addressing it, they're dressing it up through with a body, right? So I think it just kind of it maybe doesn't make the issue worse, it kind of stabilizes it, but instead of addressing what it actually is and addressing what's really going on, you're just like dressing it with you know, protein, muscle, pancakes, whatever, right? And you're just like moving on with it. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see, but I don't know if I really have the oomph in me, Wayne, to go around and asking all these blokes how their mental health is one-on-one. Yeah. Maybe I do it in the sauna, have conversations with people, and people for some reason in the sauna, which will bring us to the next point, G, around the environment and stepping off the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Where I live, we have one downstairs, and really fortunate and blessed to be able to go down and sit in 80 degrees. But in there, people are way more open and receptive to just talking. I'd be like, hey, so how's your day going? Or like, sometimes I say, what's concerning you right now? I sitting there just like a little genius therapist.
Acne aunt in the sauna. They're like, whoa, I just came in here to sweat, leave me alone.
Yeah, and actually where I live now, we call it sauna talks. We're like, oh, deep sauna talks. And we just get straight into it, you know, and I think it's because you got a finite amount of time, you know, you got 20 minutes, so you're going to have to leave because you're so hot, right? And then after that, then, or during that time, you kind of open up, expose yourself, and then off you go for your cold shower. But that's stepping out of your normal environment, stepping off the hamster wheel, as you say, into a new environment, and actually opening up and understanding yourself from a different perspective. You speak about the hamster wheel a lot, Georgia. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I get a lot of it comes in a lot of different shapes and forms. Like you mentioned, I won't go out and interview the gym bunnies, but a lot of different types of people will come to me, probably a point of oh, I need to do something about this. And some of them are exactly like you're saying, they're people who are dressing it up with the muscle, and then maybe like I get a lot of people who are like, they're into running, or they have some kind of sport that's their vice, and they're at a point where they're like, this actually isn't quite enough, and this isn't quite it. Like, I'm confused. Like, usually running is my thing, it helps me, but there's something else going on. But when you stop, so like you say, your sauna time, and you actually stop, you create perspective. So think about it, like if you had like the most beautiful view in the world, but you're on a roller coaster, you're not really able to see that view. Or if you're running on this hamster wheel, you would have no idea about how beautiful this view is because you're looking in front of you, your paws, right? We're like, nope, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And then you stop and you look and you're like, wow, that's a beautiful view. And I mean, it works for me now because I'm really seeing it. But you stop and you create the power of perspective, which you don't get if you're running all the time. You don't get necessarily actually in the gym or when you're doing your sport. I think, like you say, those things are awesome. But actually stopping, being able to stop, being able to be with yourself, be with your thoughts, that is where perspective comes from. And that's the space of innovation and creativity. But we don't give ourselves a chance to actually sit there.
Why don't we do that?
Because we're scared. Because it's demonized. We've spoken about that. Yeah. We're scared of what will come up.
But, and in general, why are we scared of what comes up?
Because we've learned what works for us to be accepted in our environment. So it's accepted to work very hard. Well done, Jim. You worked hard. It's not accepted to say, I'm going to stop now for however long. As much. Sometimes it is, but not as much. And it's also not understood as to why it's important. A good example is meditation. So why would I bother? I thought the same. I was like, why would I bother doing this? It's frustrating. It's difficult. Why would I bother meditating? What's in it for me? Because we are ego driven, right? We want to know what's in it for us. What are we going to get?
Yeah. And I actually just brought up a slideshow. I'm not going to share it, but last year I got to speak at an event, and it was for a bunch of founders, and it was the importance of taking a break. And I shared some stuff, and these are people who are either solopreneurs or up to companies of like 20, 30 people. And I'd never really myself reflected and processed the importance of, as you say, stepping off the hamster wheel or having a different perspective. But I was like, hold on a minute. I'm actually in a different location. I was in Lisbon to where I usually am in Manchester. Yeah. I was like, what? And my mind was working differently. The patterns were different. I wasn't in the same place. I wasn't in the same cycle and loop as I always was. And I come up with this, the benefits of actually going away to a new physical location is a new place, a new map, and there's new possibilities of when you're walking around, right? Yeah. Right outside of your usual thought loop, which is 90% the same each day. How can you know as you're on a hamster wheel if you're like, well, you don't know because 90% of the time you're doing the same thing. Yeah. Right. And when you're in a new place, your brain literally leaves the track or leaves the hamster wheel of the same old cycle. So it then starts creating new neural pathways. Yeah. And you are a piece of hardware, whether you like it or not. We are like in these bodies hardware. And then things like our brain, our organs, that like the information that's stored, it's software, right? And how often are we taught to reboot our software? There's a new iPhone, iOS comes up. You download it, you make sure your Wi-Fi is on at night between 2 and 5 a.m. to make sure you can get the new whatever, right? But we make sure we reboot our phones, our laptops, but we never do that for ourselves, which once we get to a certain amount of software in, right, it's like overload, but we don't get the notification to say, oh, your memory's full. As you were explaining, right, we get burnout, we get breakdowns, we get breakthroughs, right? But before that, there's the whispers. So it gives your brain, by going away, it gives your brain a chance to solve problems outside of the bubble that you live in. It works better when it's not forced. So when you're doing 90% of the repetitive tasks every single day and you're in these habits, it's really hard to solve a problem or get out of the maze when you're actually living in that maze.
Yeah.
It's way easier having different perspective, getting out the maze, looking down at it, being like, oh, if I just went left there, right there, left here, straight there, I'd have been right out.
Yeah, that's it. And you hit a few really, really important points there as well. It's so hard to solve a problem when you're just doing the same things all the time. And this is the thing, this is why it's so unproductive, because if you've got a problem as an individual in your life or even in an organization, we're all about problem solving, right? Solve a problem, do the same thing every day and solve new problems and be creative. No, those things don't work. You're doing the same thing every day. And this is the thing, this is the danger of habits. So I read that book, Atomic Habits. I also really value good habits. However, they can be dangerous because then we can get so comfortable with our new habits that we're doing exactly what you're talking about. We're doing the same thing every day, and there's no room for perspective and there's no room for problem solving. So I actually had this where, I mean, a big point in my life where I got to change perspective was moving from the UK to Ibiza. And it was a big challenge. There was lots of problems for me to solve. It was a totally new environment. There's so many things about living on an island that, like, unless you've done it, you're just not gonna know. That presents a lot of challenges. So I was constantly solving problems, constantly growing and learning. And I was being more productive, and my business was going in a direction that I was like, oh, this is the best direction ever, for the first time. And then recently I got a little bit like, oh, I was driving along and I've got my car in Ibiza now, it's super comfortable, and I'm like driving through the hills and I'm like, I'm too comfortable. And I was like, oh no, this is a red flag. I have my routines, I do my meditation in the morning, have my calls, all of this, but it's too comfortable actually now. So I need to do something to break that cycle and to break my habits. So exactly like you say, my brain has learned new neural pathways and new ways to be innovative and to work. And I need to do it again. I need to cut the cycle. And the best way to cut the cycle of a thought process is to go somewhere new. So that's why I booked this trip, and that's why I came to Mexico and I came to Costa Rica, because it scared me a little bit. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to do something that's going to make me uncomfortable in order to have more perspective again.
So I would love, because, you know, if I'm watching that right now, listening to this, I'm in the UK thinking, oh, how tough. You've gone from Ibiza to Costa Rica, Mexico. Right. So I know you've been surfing and you've been battered by some waves. Right. Yeah. That's tough. Right. So yeah. Can you talk about the waves?
Can I talk about the waves?
Yeah. I want to hear about the hardship of the waves.
The hardship of the waves. Well, it's funny because I actually got seasick whilst I was surfing as well. The hardship of the waves, yeah. So what do you want to know about the waves though?
Like, I don't know if you've surfed before. You go out there and you said the waves were big, and you were out there swallowing water. Right? That seems like something new, something hard. Like there's things that we don't have to go surfing, but if we feel comfortable in our habits, there can be things or activities that we do that are literally shake us out of our current thought, like how we think everything works, and we can literally dive into something that will give us perspective and a bit of hardship in our lives, and that probably helps you solve problems in business as well, the lessons you learn in that other environment.
Oh, massively. And you know what, it's so interesting, like the whole culture around surfing, that was a massive thing that I learned, was that the surf instructors, whenever I speak to them, they're like, I have the best job in the world, and they say it with a massive smile. I've got the best job in the world, like, look at this, man, like, and they're so happy and they're so content with life. And one day when I was going surfing, I remember, like, I was a little bit worried. I had like worries on my mind about like life, about business, and how things were going to work out, and I was in my head, and I took my worries to the waves. Not a good idea, doesn't work. And it was awful. It was really, really difficult because I was so in my head and I was being, like you say, battered by massive waves that just, I mean, you're swallowing salt water, I was trying to jump over them, I was ducking and getting tumbled in like a washing machine. And then I would be like up for air, and then I would be like, I'd have these moments of stillness in between waves. So I'd be like, oh, okay, I need to get out of my head. And it just made me so aware of how in my head I was, because I was slapped in the face with a wave. And I think that's really important. Sometimes you need a bit of a slap in the face like that.
You do. And it puts things into perspective as well. And it
Yeah.
makes you realize that you can't literally, you can't go and enjoy something and have fun if you haven't dealt with your worries and stuff. And
Yeah.
because if you take that to the activity, then you're going to be doing it through the activity. And when you're trying to stand on a piece of foam on a wave, right, and you're in your own head, you're not outside, it's
It's not
a
gonna.
recipe for drinking a lot of seawater.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I was drowned that day.
And I've done a little bit of surfing before, and I think it's actually it's a great sport, but it's also quite selfish, because once that wave comes, you want that wave. So I think the lesson is also, you've got to be selfish to be selfless. Look after yourself first, get yourself in a prime condition to actually go and perform the way you want to perform. And for you to be at that, again, changing the environment, what I had down here was, when you really boil things down, a lot of things are systematized, a lot of things have SOPs in place. The only thing that's going to differentiate, especially with, like, I don't want to go into too much of this, but like AI is going to come out, it's going to revolutionize how we do everything. The most important thing is going to be how we are as human beings, how we can actually connect and communicate, because everything else, a lot of things will be done for us. So by going away, by experiencing this stuff, you're creating stories, you're creating experiences, which makes you magnetic as well. And who are you going to want to do business with? The person who's magnetic, or the person who's burning the candle from both ends, feeling sorry for themselves, could pass out at any moment, or crash the car at any moment, and isn't aware of what they're actually doing? And I think as this shift happens, we want to be connecting more and more with people who are taking care of themselves. And I think people who are starting to pioneer that now, especially the way of the workplace and where it's going, that those people are going to be the future leaders of organizations, how things are shifting and changing right now.
It's your insurance, like, especially as well, if you think about it, for founders and investors, like, who are you going to want to invest in? Are you going to want to invest in someone who, like you say, could crash at any moment and you're not sure? Or are you going to want to invest in someone who regularly invests their time, their money, their energy into their mental health, into their physical health, into their environment? Because they're not going to stop. Nothing's going to stop them. And that's why I think, again, it's about thinking, okay, how attractive is it? It's very attractive for business and for opportunities to be in control of your direction and in control of your health, and be able to slow down when you need to, so that you can press the gas when you need to, rather than blindly driving your car into the ground.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think before we leave some people with some maybe questions that they can ask themselves, for you watching right now, when was the last time you actually changed your environment? Where did you go, or what did you do? When was the last time you changed your environment? Let us know in the comments. And whilst we wait, Amanda says, we feel guilty earning our salary and having a job whilst others were laid off, making us work harder to prove we deserve to be there. Because we often get told you're lucky to still have a job. Once again, subconsciously working harder and burning out without knowing it. Is that bullying? You're
Oh,
lucky you still have a job.
oh, that is very, yeah, and you're right. This is becoming more and more normal, and it's almost like it's being like, it's being threatened, isn't it? It's subtle. It's subtly threatening people,
Mm,
even with like huge layoffs. Look, okay, have your reasons, but communicate the reasons for the huge layoffs. But seriously look after the people who stay as well as the people who go, because that is a recipe for disaster. That is very, very toxic to be in an environment where it's like, oh, you're still lucky to have your job. Like, think about, for me, I know how I work really best is when people say, oh, Georgia, that was a great idea. Like, well done. Like, and I'm like, that motivates me to work harder. Whereas if someone says to me, you're lucky to still have a job, I crumble, like I cave, I go into my shell, and I'm nowhere near as good. And it's the same with, it's actually funny enough, the same with the surfing. Like the surf
mm.
instructor's like, yeah, you got it. I'm like, woohoo. And I'm like, I'm surfing and I'm doing really well. But if he's like, this is your last wave, I'm like, bah, and just like fall, because it's like, oh, it's your last chance. And that's, yeah, that's really concerning, especially with layoffs. And so I do think that a huge level of support is required. And if you don't have that support within your business, and you're in an environment where you're one of the lucky ones to stay, then there's an opportunity there for you to really, really change that script and be like, you know what, like, I'm not lucky. I have these skills, I have these experiences. Did that other person deserve to be laid off? No, they didn't. But this is where we are now. I also deserve to have this job. And if I don't have this job tomorrow, I have these skills and these experiences still, and I will find a way, because there's nothing worse than being driven by fear.
Yeah. And can we make good decisions if we're in a frequency of fear?
No, I mean, and answer that yourself. Like, do you think you can make a decision if you're in a frequency of fear? A good decision.
I think you can make a decision, but you can't make any kind of good decision that's for your ultimate or your highest potential.
Yeah, and that's one of the questions as well that I think is a really good one of the self-coaching questions that people can ask, is to ask yourself, when you're making a decision, are you making the decision out of fear or not?
Let me write these down. So when you're making are you making it out of takeaway questions?
So that's a really good thing to be aware of, is whether your decisions are being made out of fear. There's another way to do it, and it's to ask, and it's something that Jose said actually on our retreat last year. He said every decision is made out of either fear or love. So it's either one or the other. And so if you can become aware of whether your decisions that you're making in your day-to-day life are out of fear or love, you can then decide to choose, okay, do I want to live in fear or do I want to live in love? And it's the same with work. It's like, you want a fear-driven business, or you want a business driven, empowered and fueled by love, like passion and love for what you do, and or like, you're lucky to have this job. Whoa.
Yeah, and I guess let's think of the self-coaching question to obtain clarity and move with intention. So the first question is, are you making a decision based out of making out of fear? Are you making the decision out of fear? And then question 2 could be,
I think it's important to when we're talking about slowing down, is to equip yourself with your skills and your attributes. So I was having this conversation with one of my coaching clients the other day, and he was like, look, like, but if I don't do something, if I don't deliver on a project, I'm going to be the guy who didn't deliver, or the person who failed, the guy who failed. I don't want to be that. And then what really helped was going back to the skills and the attributes. So by doing that, we asked the question, okay, are you someone who delivers on a project? Yes, you are. You do deliver on projects. Why is that? So I think this is important. What are your skills and your attributes that allow you to deliver? So you can become really aware of your unique skills, your unique attributes that allow you to deliver on something. For example, with this particular guy, he's very logical, process driven. They were things that were really key for him to be able to deliver. Very logical, very process driven. He knew exactly what was going on. Everything was what was happening at the time. And so he was extremely very good at delivering on projects. So we're like, okay, write those things down. Be aware of those things. If you don't deliver on a project, if something goes wrong, if you get laid off, if something doesn't come through that you thought it should, it can be easy to go into the whole, oh, I failed, I'm rubbish, I'm not being process driven. Why am I not being process driven? Why am I not being, good enough to deliver on that project? What went wrong? And it can be frustrating. So to help with that, it's time to remind yourself of your skills and attributes. So then you can ask yourself the next question, which is, okay, if I don't deliver on a project, if something goes wrong, do I still have those attributes? And the answer is yes, you do. Because our egos and our brains, those beautiful neural pathways, can punish us. And so we can be punishing ourselves in our heads, or other people, even worse, when things go wrong, rather than acknowledging that if a project doesn't deliver, you are still process driven, you are still logical, you are still successful, but you've had an opportunity to learn something new. So
I'm just getting these. Oh, but these are brilliant. I'm going to put them in the chat now. And I think finishing on how would you like to make your decision? What would you like to base your decisions on moving forward?
Knowing that you have everything you need. Because this is the misconception. We think we don't have everything we need. We go outside externally looking for things we need when they are within you. If you've been working in a career for even 6 months, you have skills and attributes. Even 10 years, 20 years, you have many, many skills and attributes. It's very important to be aware of your uniqueness and how, to be honest with you, brilliant you are, so that when it comes to your decisions and your choices, you are really affirming that to yourself, and you're in a place of confidence of, I am a person I deliver on projects, I am skilled, XYZ is my personal strength. Then you can bring that with you to whatever happens. So if something goes wrong, if you get laid off, if a project doesn't deliver, you're then in a position where you can ask yourself, okay, where is my opportunity right now with my skills, with my experiences? Yeah.
And in a weird and wonderful way, what are the advantages of being in this position right now?
Yes, exactly that. That.
Okay. Well, that was a wonderful conversation, Georgia Smith. Thank you.
Thank you.
For getting up early and also showing us the background. That's beautiful as well.
Yeah, I wonder if you can see it a little bit better now. Yeah, you can.
Oh, wow.
Look at that. Oh my God. It's the jungle.
Wow. And yeah, where can people find you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best place to find me. Georgia St. John Smith. Send me a message. I'll love to chat. Or you can find me on sanctity.co.uk.
Super. And we shall be back talking about other alternative ways to change your environment in the future. And I'll be back with the third show. I feel like a presenter again on March at 12 p.m. UK time. See you guys. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being live. I'm going to get to some of the comments later on. If you have any questions or comments or feedback, please let us know. This is the start of the show that is going to go on. So thank you very much.
The show that will go on.
See you later, everyone. Thank you, G.
See you later.